Just as we begin, I acknowledge the Darug people, the traditional owners of this land here in Western Sydney. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Good afternoon, my name's Paul Stenning. I'm the principal at Cathwest Innovation College. Really quickly about us, we have two campuses, one at Mount Druitt and one at Emu Plains. I'm really pleased to be here to talk about jobs, because that's what our school's about. We have over 200 school-based apprentices and trainees on the books every single year, and we've had that for the last 10 years. So this really is our focus, and so the chance to introduce this panel and speakers to you is something that I sort of jumped at, because any opportunity to talk about what are the careers, what are the jobs that are available for our young people in Western Sydney, because that's certainly what my school's about. It's about good jobs for kids in Western Sydney. We're blessed tonight though, because our moderator for tonight is Donna Davis. So she's our local member here for Parramatta. So to have our local member who's once again also really interested in the career aspirations of young people, and Donna's taken the time to actually come here tonight to help us with this. Donna is a former councillor and Lord Mayor of Parramatta, and she's now the state member for Parramatta. Passionate local advocate and has led community campaigns across the city, and Donna has lived here for 30 years. She's raised her family in Parramatta. As the state member for Parramatta, Donna's committed to advocating for the best for Parramatta, working with Premier Chris Minns and the New South Wales Labor government to deliver for the young people in this area. Please put your hands together for Donna.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. And I would like to welcome everyone that's attending, but a big shout out to all the parents who've taken time off work this afternoon to be here. That is a big sacrifice, and I know that it's not always an easy ask, and so thank you very much for being here. Parents and students together we'll be working to make decisions about the future, and those decisions are rarely made alone. Because success after school can take many forms. You've already heard that I'm the state member for Parramatta, and Parramatta covers quite an interesting area, all of the Sydney Olympic Park right through to Westmead. So when you think of all the different industries and that are based in that particular part of Western Sydney, it encompasses a lot. You often think of Parramatta and think of the CBD and think of Parramatta Westfield, but then when you think Olympic Park, you've got stadiums, you've got major events, and you've got hospitality and of course so much more scattered in between. While university remains a valued pathway, vocational education, apprenticeships, traineeships and work-based learning are equally high quality options, and careers today don't look like they used to. One of the first jobs that I had after university was working in the CES. So a few of you, I know that the younger kids in the room aren't going to know what that is, but it was the Commonwealth Employment Service, and it's where people used to go to get help to find a job. And that was the job that I did. I used to match people with their skills with the jobs that employers had, and that they were seeking people to work for them. It was a great job and I really enjoyed it. It gave me a really good insight into industry and into employment opportunities and to an understanding of how the two work together. And today, as the mother of two 20-plus sons, I know very well what the challenges can be in those years, immediately after school, and of course then during those university or vet training, any of those points in time, during apprenticeships as well. There isn't a single right pathway anymore, nor is there one moment at 16 or 18 that determines everything. What matters now is understanding the options, knowing where the opportunities are, and especially here in Western Sydney, where we can build the skills that will open doors for you into the future. Look, Parramatta is one of Australia's fastest growing employment centres, with around 280,500 people employed locally, making it a critical place to ensure our education system is closely connected to workforce needs. Parramatta's unemployment fluctuates, highlighting why early career guidance and access to practical training pathways are so important. New South Wales is strengthening its skills system through the New South Wales Skills Plan 24-28, which focuses on 6 critical skills areas, each aligned to strong workforce demand and offering clear, high-quality career pathways. Some of those pathways that many of you in this room have probably never considered. The 6 critical skills areas are agriculture and agribusiness, digital and cyber construction, particularly housing construction, the care sector including childcare, aged and disability care, advanced manufacturing and net zero transition. It just shows you that Parramatta's economy is diverse and growing, and with the key industries here mirroring many of those 6, but also including professional services, education and training, and retail trade. And these industries offer strong local career opportunities and demonstrate to you as students that there are many different and meaningful pathways into work. When I was in Year 7, I went to boarding school on a scholarship, and that was a music scholarship. So I was really fortunate. I went away for 6 years. I loved to sing. I played the piano. You know, those were the days of Olivia Newton-John was, you know, in her prime. And, you know, I just never thought that I could quite make the mark of Olivia. So I sort of gave up that career path. And then when I go back and look at my Year 12 yearbook, the career path that I had in there was that I wanted to be a police officer. Then I went overseas for 12 months. I was a Rotary Exchange student, and during that time, that changed my mind about wanting to be a police officer, living in South Africa for a year. And when I came back, I did a Bachelor of Arts because I wanted to actually work for members of Parliament. I thought that being involved in policy and working with people in government would be a great opportunity for me to potentially change things. And that didn't happen. As you heard already, I joined the public service, worked in employment services for many years, and then never thought in my wildest dreams that I would end up here as an elected member of Parramatta. So what you think and what you plan for in those early years when you leave school or you're at school will often not reflect what happens in the long run. But that pathway and that journey is what gets you here in the end. And I'm sure that there would be similar stories from everybody on our panel here this evening. And with that, you know, tonight is about equipping you with that understanding. You'll gain insight into the careers of today and tomorrow, particularly in those high demand sectors of health, construction, technology and the care economy, as well as the industries emerging through major infrastructure developments like the Western Sydney Airport. More importantly, you'll hear directly from industry experts about what employers are truly looking for. Tonight also creates an opportunity to connect with educators from Cathwest Innovation College, TAFE through VET Pathways and university partners such as ACU. With employers, with industry, these conversations matter because networking is no longer optional, it's critical. It's a critical life skill. Communicating is so important, and it's one of those skills we must actively model and teach our children. communicating in many forms. We know that the art of conversation can sometimes be replaced with a text message, and those of us that employ staff know that sometimes you have to really encourage your staff to pick up a phone because they would much rather be sending an email or a text message, and that can be the same in any form of employment. It's having that confidence to communicate with your colleagues and with management. So the question we leave you with is this: how do we as parents and educators ensure our young people are not just prepared for the future but confident in navigating it? And that's what tonight is about. And so now I would like to introduce the panellists sitting here patiently. So we have Sophie Nazarin. Hope I got that right. Sophie is the founder and CEO of an ANATE corporate group where she leads education, training and workforce initiatives designed to create principal pathways into employment in healthcare and trade sectors. With more than 20 years of experience in healthcare, Sophie began her career as a registered nurse before moving into senior leadership. She also serves as Regional Flexible Workforce Manager at HealthScope, where she oversees a flexible nursing workforce of more than 200 staff across 9 hospitals, right across New South Wales. Her work involves leading workforce coordination across a large hospital network and supporting staffing responsiveness in complex healthcare environments. So thank you, Sophie, for joining us this evening. Darren Ingram is the Director and Chief Operating Officer of Clarendon Homes. There's probably a few of you here tonight that live in a Clarendon home. You may not even know it. Darren began his career as a carpenter before obtaining his builder's licence and starting a small construction business. In 1994, he decided to hang up his tools and join Clarendon Homes as a junior estimator, but he still continued to climb up ladders, and he has arrived now at the point of Chief Operating Officer of CPG. So thank you very much for being here this evening, Darren. To Joe Tapley. Joe is the Senior Manager for Early Years Education at Ambrose, overseeing 7 early learning services. And with a degree in early childhood education and teaching, she brings over 25 years of experience in the early childhood sector. She's dedicated to achieving exceptional educational outcomes for young learners through play-based learning. And to David, who I've known for many years, and David is the Executive Director of Business Western Sydney, a not-for-profit business group representing more than 150 of the region's largest organisations in government, industry and community. It advocates for public and private sector investment that will make the region a better place to live, work, play and learn. He's also on the board of various boards, but one in particular that many of you would be interested in is that amazing new powerhouse museum that's coming out of the ground. Well, it's out of the ground now and has been handed over to Create New South Wales to turn into a fabulous museum, and David is the chair of that board. Kate Dodd. Kate is a design thinking and decision science strategist who has led global engagements and transformations for organisations including Google, Bloomberg, Optus and Disney. Kate is a founding member of the Career Collective Project, a global initiative designed to work alongside schools, universities and careers teams to help young people find their career path and develop the skills to succeed at work. And Valentine McCurrier is the campus dean at the Australian Catholic University in Blacktown. Valentine's expertise lies in curriculum design and university community engagement and has worked extensively in designing and delivering work-integrated learning and service learning curriculum in higher education institutions in Australia, the USA, Canada and Kenya. So please give all of our panellists a warm welcome this evening. What we're going to do now is have a session of just picking the brains of our panellists. We're very fortunate to have so many people with a great wide range of experience. And the first question is going to go more broadly, and it's going to be to you, David, and that is, how is the growth of Western Sydney shaping future job opportunities for young people?
Thanks, Donna. So, Western Sydney's a big place. There's well over 2 million people living here. It's growing fast. It's one of the fastest growing regions in Australia. We're meant to add 1 million in population over the next 20 years, and that's an enormous figure. And that means, I don't know if you've seen Parramatta Square. So that's the biggest office development in Western Sydney. That's 200,000 square metres, 20,000 jobs. So we need 4 Parramatta Squares over the next 20 years. We need 3.5 Parramatta Westfields over the next 20 years. There's a high-rise university building called the Peter Shergold Building, the first one in Parramatta Square. We need 30 Peter Shergold buildings. So the growth of Western Sydney is really big. And there's a big infrastructure pipeline, particularly in rail with Metro West. Every mayor in Western Sydney is arguing for a new train line. So we're seeing population growth, we're seeing infrastructure growth. The airport, the first airline operates on the 25th of October, international on the 26th. Government spent $15 billion on the airport, the M12 motorway, the train line and surrounding infrastructure. So we're seeing Western Sydney as a growth story. I guess in the last 20 years, the big job heroes, the big growth areas in Western Sydney have been construction, infrastructure, building and health. They've been the 2 big ones. It doesn't mean that other sectors haven't done well. Manufacturing's still here. It's smaller. It's more highly qualified. But I think increasingly AI is going to have an impact on some areas, and I don't quite know how. I saw a little graph the other day showing how much impact it would have on every area, and I can't remember all of the graph, but I remember looking at landscaping because AI has no impact at all on landscaping. So if you're good at that and you want to do that, go for your life. And the only other thing, and this is not so much to your question, Donna, but I think whatever you do, you have to enjoy doing it. And my only gratuitous advice in life is there's some things I'm really good at and there's some things I'm just terrible at. And when I've tried to do the things I'm terrible at really well, I've just wasted time. So I think double down on your strengths, find what you like to do. And you often don't know what you want to do. Like Donna, I dropped out of school, went to 10 schools in 2 states and worked in a spring factory in Newtown as a process worker. And then over time thought, I think my brother was going to uni and we're a bit competitive. So I had to go back and learn how to study and did other things. But like whatever it is, find what you're good at doing.
Thanks. No, that's great start to the question. So given that Western Sydney is all about construction right now and lots of things coming out of the ground, Darren, my next question is to you. What skills or qualities do you look for when hiring young people? Because we know that many of the people that you will recruit will actually end up, in many different parts of construction in the future. So can you give us a bit of a heads up for what you're looking for?
Sure. When it comes to the initial stage, which is an apprenticeship, I guess apprentices have the benefit of not having any experience, and so really we can't look at historic work experience. Really, we're looking at attitude. That's the most important thing that we do look for, and attitude in both the apprentice and the parents actually, because we do see an apprenticeship as it's a relationship between us, the apprentice, and the parents. For your apprenticeship, it is a long time. We do want the apprentices to have a lot of resilience, and it's important to make sure they have support, not only from the host trade they're working for, but also from their parents, because there will be days when an apprentice comes home and they've been a bit bored, they've been doing the same thing as they did yesterday, or some really hard work, and they get home and it's, I guess, very easy for parents to go, that's pretty tough, you should tell your boss you don't want to do that again. But what we're really looking for is parents who will support us and try and build that resilience in their son or daughter and try and help them through, because the most critical part of an apprenticeship is finishing. There are going to be some tough times in getting through, so resilience is really important. And once you get through those 4 years, the whole world opens up. So it's really a resilience and the support that we look from parents, as well as the attitude of the apprentice that's vital. And I guess I could say that those sitting in the room today, everybody here, you're a step ahead of everybody else. You've shown the initiative to simply be here And I would say there's only a very small percentage of people in your position that are here today. So you're ahead of the competition, and well done for that. One of the other things that we would look for is part-time work. We do find that those that have had part-time jobs before starting an apprenticeship will start to learn a work ethic and learn what it's like and responsibilities of going to work, earning money, and the responsibilities that come with it. So part-time work and attitude, that's really what we look for.
Thank you, Darren. So, Sophie, throwing to you, so we've heard about the construction industry, but we also know that, well, as I mentioned earlier, Westmead and right through Western Sydney, health services are incredibly important. What are the biggest growth areas in health that will need workers in the next 5 to 10 years when the people in this room are going to be starting their careers?
Well, healthcare is quite dynamic. It's evolving, it's ever-changing, and most of the growth areas are in aged care at the moment. We're an ageing population. We're seeing a lot of things in the media about aged care not having enough resources and staff. Another big area is the disability sector with the introduction of the NDIS and how that's just exploded. The resources are not sufficient. In terms of the hospital sector, critical care areas, I have a perioperative background. It's an amazing...
what is that?
Perioperative means working in the operating theatre. So there are many facets of the perioperative environment: day surgery, recovery, the actual being in the actual operating theatres, working with surgeons and anaesthetists. It's one of the most advanced areas with different specialties, so learning all different specialties and getting people up to a level where they can work across many disciplines. The one thing with healthcare is no matter where you go in the world, you will always have a job. And the great thing about that, you can start right at the bottom, and I am living proof of that, and go right to the top. And there isn't an area of healthcare that I haven't worked across, and I'm very proud of that. I didn't do the best at school, and I'm too embarrassed to even say what my ATAR was, and nobody, I'm sure my parents would have thought, she's not going to ever do anything. And to have gone through from a undergraduate's pathway program all the way through to completing a PhD, I'm exceptionally proud, and giving back. So what there is in terms of healthcare is you can work across so many different areas, and day to day, year to year, those areas will change based on demand.
So Sophie, just expanding on that, because I'm sure there's people in the room here that are interested in the health industry. How can the parents here tonight help their teenagers gain exposure to health-related careers early?
Yeah, so one of the big things, I'll answer that, but just one of the big things is that what we're seeing is a lot of people will complete a qualification, be it a vocational qualification or a degree, and come out into industry. When you come out into industry, you get a day of orientation and maybe 2 or 3 days of a supernumerary shift, and you're expected to go deal with patients. That is the expectation, life and death. Now that is exceptionally scary for anybody, even somebody with experience. Throw me in after 2 days into the deep end somewhere, I'm going to be like, what am I doing? And it's about giving people the skills. So just because you have the qualification doesn't mean that you're competent in the skills to be able to do the task. You're dealing with life and vulnerable people. There's nothing about healthcare that is sexy, unfortunately. It's not, and we need to make it attractive. And in order to make it attractive, we need to give people the tools to be able to do the job. So with Annates, with our business, what we've created is pathways to bridge the gap between the qualification and the skill. So we created programs where we provide the opportunity for students, young people, to come in and actually experience firsthand simulated environments, clinical environments, to give you a taste of what you're expected to do when you go out to employment. And so for parents, what I say is every opportunity to be at work experience, any sort of exposure, these sort of programs where your child may be interested in a healthcare discipline. It doesn't have to be nursing. It can be allied health. It could be medicine, pharmacy. It just gives them a taster. It gives them a taster into the language, what they're going to be exposed through, and also the opportunity to gain some work experience.
Okay, thank you very much. So next to you, Joanne, the early childhood sector is another big growth sector. There's more and more mums and dads are in the workforce. So what opportunities does this create for young people?
Lots of opportunities. As you mentioned, great investment in the care economy. So wonderful scholarship opportunities funded through the New South Wales government as well as the federal government for qualification attainment, and all different ways to start your career in early childhood, ranging from a traineeship entry right up to university entry as well. And there's lots of pathways, options for those who are not sure about studying and what level of study that they want to participate in. Ambrose Early Years, we have 7 early learning services. We also have 60 before and after school care services. So those that are not sure of what age that they want to work with, we have got a variety of age groups that might be something that you're interested in. There's great development opportunities, whether that be at a teaching level or a director level. I've worked, I just like to say, a long time in the sector now, and in different capacities. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth and development as well.
Fantastic. So next we have AI, an area that we know can't really replace childcare, but is definitely growing in terms of healthcare and health services, and really is an increase of AI. So Kate, what skills should parents encourage their teenagers to develop now to stay relevant in an AI-driven future?
Thanks, Donna. As far as skills, I should explain that I didn't put in my bio, so I'm an architect, worked with all of those companies across tech around the world, engaging with the business to understand what work people actually do and build systems to support them. I decided I didn't want an MBA, so I went and got a master's in data science strategy and AI at exactly the same time that ChatGPT came out, which was a blessing and a curse. And I think as far as skills that are attainable and learnable, the understanding yourself as a whole person, being aware of what experiences and skills and perspectives you bring to the table in any context is the critical moment. A lot of leadership and investment in AI is based around really short-sighted investments, in my opinion, versus thinking about how we serve people and listening to kind of the people of Western Sydney from all of these different perspectives. At the end of the day, how we interact with one another is the key. That translation piece, that nuance around how to use AI is missing from the conversations. From a purely data science perspective, the information, the way that computers think is the wrong word, right? The way that the math operates doesn't allow for the complexity of who we are and how we interact. So acknowledging that within yourself, being aware and thinking not just, I have these specific work-related skills or I've done this certification, but I'm interested in this. I can connect that to my relationship and my experiences with why, and connecting all of those things to understand who you are and what your value add is. My second piece is that in any post-apocalyptic film, or actually any film altogether, I would argue that the hero, the person that makes everything work, is not the main character, it's the engineer. Right, there's a person who has to set up all the systems so the hero can go and do their thing. There's the person who makes the DeLorean work. There's the person who built the Death Star. There's somebody doing the engineering that makes all of this work. The design, the connective tissue. And again, thinking back to what the other panelists have spoken about, logistics. How does the supply chain that connects all of these pieces work? Like there's so many, we think about careers as just buckets and specific streams that you can lean into. And we forget that it is an ecosystem and there's crossover between them and there's opportunities to find anything that you're interested in, where your skills and strengths lie, to lean into, to contribute.
That's really interesting. I think one of the first times that I started to think about logistics was actually when I met somebody who worked in the army, and he was a logistics officer, and I hadn't really thought about it, and until I actually met somebody that did that job, about how much logistics is a part of being in the army and being able to get everything from A to B. And so just following on from that, AI is changing many industries. So what careers are emerging that parents may not be aware of?
I mean, it's a new one every day, right? So that's the difficulty. I think that translation piece, and that's where jobs are coming. There's the human in the loop at the laziest end of the spectrum, around making sure that things do connect back to the real world, and the decisions are properly vetted. But the amount of content, the amount of slop that is in the mix makes that a very, very difficult job. I think the capacity to define and understand and break down human nuance into models that a computer could process. What is mathematically sensible? Like from logistics, from a warehousing perspective, there's really cool robot stuff going on. Like there are things that are really good use cases for AI. Unfortunately, that's not the only place that investment is happening. And so if you're trying to replace people out of a system, then that investment is going in the wrong direction. If it's trying to purpose people in a productive way, I think of the computers, right? The women who did the maths for the Apollo missions, like the literal computers. If you've ever seen Hidden Figures, I recommend it. It's not that those people are no longer required. It's imagine if those women had calculators, if they had the compute power, what would those minds be able to do? And so nobody's out here flinging an abacus anymore, right? We've all got Excel, but what does that enable us to do? And if that enables us to structure ourselves more and more into being replaceable, then I think that's a worse outcome for everyone, versus structuring ourselves into enabling our humanity, considering human experiences. High ropes camping, interacting with people, communicating with people are increasingly valuable because we spend our time in the screen, and we as animals are not made for that. So we're going to crave a lot more diversity. And so leaning into some of those outside opportunities and ways to connect those and to bridge the gap.
Great, that's really interesting. So Valentine, at the Australian Catholic University, what are you doing to address the skills shortages in industry?
Thank you for that. I think from the sound of it, Kate has pretty much already given the pitch for ACU, so I'm not sure I should be speaking about it at this point in time, but I think she's certainly touched on the core of who we are as a university and how we educate the mind and the heart in service for the human condition. So I think, it's the theme of, the first question of paneling around, growth areas and what's happening in growth and higher education institutions. And I think the key word here is growth. So at the Blacktown campus, I like to think of us still as the newest kid on the block for ACU's geographic footprint of universities. And it is a growing campus. And going off of the 30 Peter Shah goals, now you need 29 because we have ACU in Blacktown, so we'll work towards 29 higher ed institutions. And my colleague there, Narges, is, she's got a whole suite of units and programs that we offer at ACU. So they just generally give you an idea about the areas of growth. But I think what I find is the growth hinges on our contribution to the human condition. And the programs that we offer keep very much in tune with the human person, and especially when we're living in an age where it feels like there's a really big gap between humans and who we are as people and what we do, and the rise of AI. And I believe today is May the 4th be with you sort of scenario. So we are kind of operating in that sort of environment, but it still remains central to that education at the core of the human and towards that working towards a common good and really focusing on human dignity as it stands. And so when I look at growth for us at ACU in Blacktown in particular, the programs that we offer also are designed with a core curriculum that requires for community engagement. So students have an opportunity to work with community in different shapes and forms as part of the integral part of their curriculum. And I think with that kind of growth strategy and that focus, it reminds us what it means to be human, and we educate and we learn with the primary focus of being human. And I think, going back to growth, there's a lot that we have to learn when it comes to AI and all things related to it. And of course, my kids always have a good crack at me because just recently I learned that my phone has a few more functions than I thought that it was. So I'm learning to type my notes on the phone and that sort of thing, but I always still do it with the one finger sort of thing, so you can kind of tell the generation that it is. But I think what has been an advantage in terms of looking at that growth is that it has that personal and professional development embedded within it. And this is how we view education at ACU and how we look to our students, particularly to grow in their fields, pursuing excellence, but with their minds and hearts focused on the common good and their contribution to it.
And what are the sort of top 3 degrees that you, in terms of the numbers of students enrolled that you have at the moment? Is that...
I'll just give it from the Blacktown perspective, but we do have campuses across the country and including Rome. So if there's anyone who'd like to experience Rome as part of your degrees, this is my pitch for the institution. So at the Blacktown campus, our biggest program is nursing and midwifery, again, focusing very much on health and health outcomes. We also have education, so we have a number of education programs, and we also have exercise sports programs that are running out of the Blacktown Exercise Sports Park, which is state-of-the-art sort of facility in terms of our education and training. So those would be the largest ones. We have, interestingly, we are beginning to see quite an interest, particularly around social enterprise, and we ran a program last year on the voice of young social entrepreneurs, and there is quite an interest and an appetite for that, again, bridging the gap between the social and the economic growth trajectories.
Does anyone know what a social enterprise is? Can you just quickly, in 10 words or less, explain what social enterprise is to...
Social, the bottom line is people and what's good for them. Enterprise, economic side of things. So for any business to do good, it has to make money to be able to deliver more good out of it. And it focuses, while it's focusing on the economic bottom line, its primary core driver is people and what works best for people.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to head back over to you, Darren, because I'm just interested in finding out if Clarendon has an apprenticeship program, and if so, how does it work?
Yes, we do have an apprenticeship program, and we're fortunate to have 2 of our apprentices in the room. We have Ella and Latrell, who are both with Cath West, poster kids of our program. So we do. We have both an apprenticeship program and a cadet program. We have 4 apprentices, and we'll take on another 4 each year. Ella and Latrell are both school-based apprentices, and we also have a second and a third year who are full-time. So Ella and Latrell, 1 day a week with one of our host trades. So we're fortunate to have many contractors that work for us for many years. So we place our apprentices with our host trades. We subsidise the cost of that trade to make it encouraging for the trade to train them. And then we rotate the apprentice through different contractors throughout their 4-year apprenticeship. So they're getting exposure to different experiences, different segments of the building industry, from frame carpentry, fix out, eaves, cladding, those kind of things. So it's not the same thing for the 4 years. We rotate them through a number of different host trades. And the goal for us is to at the end of the apprenticeship, result in a tradesperson, male or female, who can then have a whole bunch of career options in front of them. They could elect to continue as a trade, working for one of the contractors. They could start their own business and contract back to us. They may elect to come into the office. We offer a cadet program in our business as well, where we take on estimating, drafting cadets. We train them how to do estimating, do the operational side within the business. And they can learn estimating, drafting, and they can be on a pathway to become a site manager as well. So the pathway, as I mentioned earlier, the real goal of an apprentice is and for us and for the parents, is to try and get them to their 4th year. Once they're finished, it opens up. They can then be contractor, site manager, supervisor, project manager, development manager, or estimator. So there's a whole range of different opportunities. We also offer the cadet program where you don't necessarily need to be having finished a trade to do it. You could join us as a cadet and do anything from admin to junior estimating or estimating assistant. So there's a whole bunch of different pathways that we have, both cadet or apprentice, and it opens it up into a number of different roles at the end. And hopefully, I know it's very difficult for everybody sitting here today to know what you're going to want to do in 4, 5, 10 years. The one thing about the building industry, it does open up a lot of opportunities once you have finished your apprenticeship. I myself have had, I would say, 5 or 6 different careers all within the building industry. At your age and as a first year apprentice, to think that I'd be sitting on a stage wearing a suit that's an absolutely foreign idea to me. There's no way in the world I thought I'd ever be speaking in front of a large group or doing what I do. So it's been remarkable how many different opportunities it does bring forward. And again, I'm selling the benefits of the building industry. But I guess really the goal for an event like today is to find a career that's important to you. I have 3 kids. My only goal for them was to find a career they're passionate about. Unfortunately, none of them ended up in construction, but hopefully a few of you may find that attractive.
Okay, back to you, David. So we've got quite a few industries represented here this afternoon. But what other skills are businesses in Western Sydney currently looking for, and how is it changing?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it doesn't matter what the companies or what the industry is. I think people skills are often the most important skills. I think when employers are looking to recruit someone, obviously they need technical skills. You need to be able to do the job. But how you get on with the other team members is probably the most critical thing in that job, because teams perform together. Team performance is really important, and team performance can be strengthened or ruined by having someone that doesn't have the right skill set to actually build the team to support each other. So I think that's a critical thing. So learning how to, I think the thing about part-time work is absolutely correct. I've always thought that. I was a paperboy at Sefton when I was 11 years old or something like that, with a whistle. When there was the Mirror and the Telegraph. They were different papers, and you have to whistle through the streets, and people would bring out their 8 cents or whatever and give you a pat on the head, and it was so good to me having that job. And I had so many part-time jobs. When I was at uni, I had 3 jobs, and so when I got my first full-time job, I felt like I'd already had 10 jobs, and at least I kind of knew how to. You got to serve customers. It's good to, I think, have a service job. Serving people, looking after people, because that's kind of part of work as well. The other thing I'd say, which is not the question, sorry, Donna, you asked, but Barney Glover is the former Vice-Chancellor of Western Sydney University, was here for over a decade, did an amazing job. Barney's PhD was in mathematics. He's got 3 sons. Every one of his sons is a tradie. That's their jobs, right? And he's an advocate for trades. Now, he's the National Skills Commissioner, so he's in charge of trying to skill the entire country. And when I talk to Barney, he often says the number one single in-demand job in the next 20 years is an electrician or electrical trades or electrical engineering. It's the fastest growing. There's nothing that's going to knock it out. It needs smarts. It needs manual skills. We need a lot of electricians. I've got a good friend of mine, Bruce, Donna. His son did a Bachelor of Business, specialised in marketing, worked somewhere for 6 months, worked somewhere for 12 months. Never quite really found a great place that he really loved. He's now an electrician with State Rail up at Hornsby doing his and he loves it. He comes home, every time I see him, the young fellow Lachlan, I've never seen this guy happier than he's been since he's been an apprentice electrician. And the other thing to mention too is when you look at the growth of data centres is vast. It's enormous. Now, they don't employ tons of people, but they do employ people with electrical skills, and the building of them involves that. But when you look at we're going through the transition of energy. We've got 3 coal-fired power stations. They haven't got much longer. They're holding them together with sticky tape at the moment. They will go eventually. And so the big play is we lead the world in rooftop solar. We're great at rooftop solar. We've got to be able to store that. So building the transmission lines between Sydney and these renewable energy zones in the regional areas, that is a vast undertaking which will require so many workers, and then the battery storage systems that's going to help us to keep that energy and put it back in the grid in the night in the middle of summer when you need it. So I think those are areas that if you've got an interest in that area, that's going to be the gold rush.
Yeah, thanks. Really, really good information there. And I think the other thing I would like to add, even though I'm the host here, is that yes, it is really good for our young people to have part-time jobs, but there's also an opportunity for volunteering, and also there's the opportunity to be involved in organisations like Scouting. Now, obviously, for you now, at this age, if you're not already been doing Scouts, you're probably not going to start that now. But what I'm trying to say is that you can obtain some of these skills in different places, and don't think that if you are, you're your age now and you haven't had a part-time job yet, that it's all over. You may be the captain or co-captain of a sporting team. That also teaches you skills and leadership and gives you that communication skill with your coach and with your fellow players. So there's a whole range of things that you can do that can really be benefiting you for the future. And so with that, I'm going to pass over again to Joanne. What are the pathways for young people, and how can we prepare our young people, just building on what we've just been talking about?
Leading on from what you were just talking about, Donna, absolutely, if you're engaged in sport, I think that's a great starting point. For example, if you're enjoying your sport and you're interested in coaching, and that could be something that you develop, and that it could be assistant coaching, it could be umpiring, it could be, I say umpiring, I'm a netballer. So it could be that you're really eager and engaged in working with others and building up on those skills, those leadership skills, and on guiding a training session. That could be a great baseline to support those teaching skills. If you're wanting to be a teacher, working with children, in those organisational skills and planning skills as well. In early childhood, if you are interested, I do really encourage you to get in contact with your local services for some volunteer work, because that will give you a step in and an understanding. It is, a lot of it, yes, is play, and it's play with purpose. It is more than just free play. It's guiding children in their social skills, in their learning. I know I really, a key driver for me to get into early childhood was to work with children so that they are having a voice and that they are enjoying learning. And that was my big drive. And if you're interested and you're working through your different options, I would encourage you to talk to your local services for work experience as well.
Really helpful. And Sophie, what are some of the entry-level pathways that exist for students interested in health careers?
So there are a number of undergraduate programs. So I know Kath West is running a school-based Certificate 3 traineeship, Certificate 3 in Health Service Assistance. I think that's a great opportunity for anybody that wants to, not sure what they want to do in healthcare, but it's also, by the time they finish school, it's an entry point into employment. And I just want to touch on that, and I think I shared this story with Judy. I had a 17-year-old girl, very quickly. She came from Queensland, transferred to New South Wales, and she was poached by one of the rugby league teams, and she was looking for a job, but she was 17. She'd done everything. She's got the qualification, she's done the work placement hours, but she couldn't get a job in the hospital sector because she was 17 and couldn't get a working with children check. So I went to bat for her with everybody in the corporate team, and I said, look, she's got everything, can we just give her a go? And I got her over the line, and I have to say she is doing phenomenal. She's doing better than our undergraduate RN students that have done their first year because she's got the practical skills. So where there's an opportunity to start while you're at school, do it. Other programs are things like what we do at ANATE, which is the Pathways to Employment Foundations programs. Again, the undergraduate pathway programs through the university colleges are fantastic. Anything that gives you exposure, really. Just never say no to an opportunity, because the worst thing that can happen The worst thing that can happen for you is somebody says no to you, but who cares? At least you get the opportunity to engage and learn. And I say, don't be afraid, because I can guarantee you the person next to you is probably scared as well, okay? There's no risk in putting your hand up and saying, hey, I'll give that a go.
There's a young fella that works in my office, and he's been there now since I was elected to this role, and he's part-time. He's studying at university, and he approached me by sending me a message on Instagram and said that, he was really interested in helping me as I was, he liked what I stood for, and he came and helped me when I was running for my election to be the state member. So, you find people that you employ in very interesting places, but it's just a message to tell you that, reach out, don't be afraid, open every opportunity to yourself, and it might seem like it's not a very traditional pathway, but it might just do the trick and be that one thing that opens the door for you to the future career that you want. Now, I'm not sure if Michael's walking through that door because he wants me to wind up or because he's really interested. Okay, so are we up? Is that time now? Okay, wonderful.
We do have a few minutes for questions. So there might be something that's sort of burning for you that you might want to ask one of the panel members.
Thank you. My name's Alan from Career Collective. My question's for David. It just sounds to me like if you're leaving school, Western Sydney is the place to leave school from. Can you just expand?
Yeah, no, it hasn't always been the case. I mean, when I left school, when people went to uni, almost everyone ended up in the inner west, the east or the north, because that's where, frankly, all the knowledge jobs were. There was, lots of amenity in those areas, but also housing was cheap. What we're seeing now is we've got kind of rising graduates in Western Sydney, and they're staying here. They're staying here because their communities are here, their social connections are here, but also you've still got this sort of house price imbalance. So I think it's the growth story. Like adding 1 million people in 20 years, that's an engine for jobs, creating jobs that are local, and the infrastructure I think the governments are rolling out to deliver. And that we're still playing catch up in Western Sydney. We've got a lot more to do, I think we're a bit prouder to live in Western Sydney. Like when I grew up, you're a little bit sheepish about coming from Western Sydney because people kind of look down on you. Now I think there's a sense of pride, that people come from here. People are happy to live here. They don't need to be saved, But I think it's a growth story, and you can the fastest rising areas of both technical and further education increase are in Western Sydney. So we're becoming more skilled, and I think if you're a company and you want to locate, companies are pretty good at working out where they should be, and the thing that they're often looking for is how do I get access to the biggest range of talent? So economists call it the labour pool, a thick labour market. It's like a dating site. I've never been on a dating site. I'm too old. I didn't have to. We didn't have them. But if you were going on a dating site, you could go on a dating site where 10 people are looking for a date, but you'd probably go on a dating site where 10,000 people are looking for a date because you have a greater choice. I think employers are like people looking for dating sites, and Western Sydney is a big dating site for jobs.
Sorry, if I can add to that, one of the key things, and I was a Rotary Exchange student, I volunteer for Rotary, is that the language groups and cultural background, the cultural diversity in this area is something that other areas don't have access to. And when we talk to young people about their futures, they tend to discount their diverse backgrounds and capabilities. I imagine especially in healthcare, and having some experience with older people with dementia, is that losing second and third languages is one of the first things to happen. And so being able to play into those strengths and consider them as strengths, that the integration of communities in Parramatta as opposed to the assimilation, I think is a huge positive and a huge strength. That, as I mentioned, Rotary, because we're working with the Mongolian community. There are more kids that speak Mongolian at my local primary school than English at home, and they're going to learn English at school anyway. To come back to Valentine's point about the technical skills. The technical skills are available. the connections and the human capabilities and that storytelling is, we've got primary school students writing books in Mongolian and English so that their younger siblings and cousins will have access to children's books in Mongolian. And so kind of how do you pull together government and community and opportunities, and then these, year 6 students will have a published book when they go to start looking for university roles or their first job. That experience, I think, I have a question for the parents in the room. Did you know that your entire careers, or does anybody have a career that isn't actually just an extended group project? Yeah. So at school, group projects are torturous. At university, they're awful, but that's just how life is. There's no right answer. Once you finish doing exams and tests, there are no right answers. Everything is ambiguous. It's the best you can do in the conditions that you have. And so we wax lyrical about finding out who you are and contributing your skills. Articulating that is really hard. Having conversations with your kids, with your network, is really hard. And so, as I mentioned, that's where the Career Collective came from, around trying to bring together the research and the entities and business and universities and schools to be able to have those conversations. Because it is hard, but it's a huge opportunity, and it's better than doing group projects for the rest of your life.
Any other questions?
Just wanted to say, as a parent, thank you for your time. It's really appreciative for the youngest students. Question, as the city is growing and there's a lot more development and lack of land expanding through Western Sydney, how would you encourage children who are looking at becoming agricultural or livestock veterinarians to go down that pathway when it's not really spoken about career path these days with the growing city that we're in Western Sydney? Sorry, mum embarrassment.
Come and talk to us. Specifically because there are industry bodies, there's so many opportunities that's impossible to be across them all. Specifically, we work with meat and livestock and agri-businesses across Australia. And so they have programs, they have all of these investments and opportunities and apprenticeships and innovation streams, and all of that is happening. It's just whether or not you can find it, whether you have access to it. And there are city jobs, there are country jobs, there's everything in between in every industry. And so finding the opportunity, take every opportunity, to Darren's point earlier, is just, lean into everything that comes up, because you might just meet a random person on a panel who knows the right person to put you in touch with. So it's worth asking.
Yeah, can I just add to that? This is what happens when you're sitting next to the person with the mic. You do get benefits for that. I'd also say, I think in terms of just the exploration and prospects, one of the things that I found important was life in the day of. So sometimes just connecting with somebody who's in the field, who's in the industry, and just spending one day with them. Because I think we have, between the ideal and the reality, sometimes it's worlds apart. What your job description says and what you actually do could be two very different stories. But I would also encourage, and this is from the university context, whichever program of study or wherever it is, it's also a time of more exploration. And I find, again, within the university context, you find that there are opportunities, including for things like study abroad, work integrated learning opportunities. So just taking a lot of that initiative and just sending Instagram messages or just doing something like that takes the initiative. But I think just opening it and opening yourself up to all the world of opportunities, literally, that you could learn in the field. And I think what I've found with, particularly on the research space, sometimes the things that people research on are things that no one would ever have thought about researching, for example. And I remember meeting someone who was studying about something to do with light and how we learned that from spider webs. And it's nothing I would ever have thought, but it's so critical in terms of how it shapes our understanding around what we do and what we develop for humanity. And I think it's just exposing yourself to the opportunities as well as taking advantage of them. And then just one last speech before Michael comes in. One of the things that I recently came across was the understanding that Parramatta has the second highest per capita PhDs in the state. To have those sorts of statistics is nothing small. To have the number of people with that kind of qualification in our midst is something really great. And I think one of the unfortunate challenges we've had is often living under the shadows of other people's wings. and not feeling like we can actually live up to what it is that we know, what it is that we're good at. So I think it's about time we span that story around in terms of who we have and what sort of potential we're actually sitting on here in Western Sydney. And that part of the story comes from you. And I think the sort of excellence, the sort of potential that's rife in Western Sydney is something to really be celebrated, as opposed to the usual cowering around waiting for that sort of self-discovery. So with that kind of educational attainment speaks volumes to the sort of potential we have, both intellectual, physical, and every other capacity to grow the region.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before we conclude? And I'd like to say, just come and have a chat over there about some opportunities. Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Well, just a vote of thanks from me on behalf of you, Valentine, for always reminding us that we can be of service in the world. To Kate, helping us see that, okay, in AI, IT-dominated sort of space, it's the human connection that's probably the critical thing. David, just for your unboundless passion for Western Sydney and letting us know what those opportunities are. Donna, thank you so much for leading us through this conversation here, and once again taking your precious time to come and chair this meeting for us. Joe, for your advocacy of young people. Like, think about the little ones, and they need someone who's going to educate them, and for providing those opportunities. Darren, you talked about persistence. Like, think about that. Sometimes our young people don't stick at things because but I think that was a really strong message about your company, saying, let's just make sure we get them through, because once we get them there, that the doors open up. Sophie, for reminding us that it's not just about the qualification, but it's also about the experience that goes with it. Really important things to put together. Can we put our hands together for our panel?